In the bustling streets of London, where red double-decker buses rumbled endlessly and hurried footsteps echoed against rain-darkened pavements, there existed a place few people noticed. It was tucked discreetly between a modern café and a clothing boutique, its narrow frontage easily overlooked by passers-by consumed by their daily routines. Yet for those who paused, even briefly, the bookstore revealed itself like a whispered secret from another time. Its wooden sign, weathered by decades of wind and rain, creaked softly whenever the breeze passed through the street. The letters carved into it, Thomson's Books and Curiosities, had faded, but the charm remained intact. The display window was modest, showcasing a handful of old hardcovers, their spines cracked with age, and a small brass lamp that glowed warmly even during daylight hours. Inside those walls, among shelves heavy with stories, a love story lay hidden. One both beautiful and tragic, waiting patiently to be rediscovered. The owner of the bookstore, Mr. Harold Thomson, had inherited more than just the property. He had inherited silence, memory, and longing. In his late 60s, he moved slowly now, his steps careful as if afraid to disturb the fragile past that lived within the shop. His silver hair was always neatly combed, his clothes modest but tidy, and his wire-rimmed glasses perpetually slid halfway down his nose. Mr. Thomson spent most of his days dusting shelves that rarely collected dust and rearranging books that rarely moved. He knew every creak of the floorboards, every loose hinge, every faint smell of paper and ink. Books were his companions, his refuge, and his consolation. Yet behind his gentle smile lived a sadness that never truly faded, a sorrow rooted in stories he had heard as a child, stories that shaped his life long before he understood their weight. On one such afternoon, London surrendered to rain. The sky turned a heavy shade of grey, and droplets fell relentlessly, splashing against shop windows and umbrellas alike. People rushed for shelter, their coats pulled tight, their thoughts fixed on warmth and dryness. It was during this downpour that Emily Carter found herself darting down the street, soaked and shivering, searching for refuge. Emily was in her late 20s, with thoughtful eyes and a quiet presence that often went unnoticed. She worked as a freelance editor, spending her days immersed in manuscripts and her evenings alone in her small flat. Life had taught her resilience early, and though she carried herself with calm composure, her heart bore the scars of love lost and promises broken. Spotting the bookstore's warm glow, she hesitated only a moment before pushing open the door. A small bell chimed, delicate and welcoming. Immediately, she felt it, the warmth, the stillness, the scent of old paper and polished wood. The rain seemed to fade away behind her, replaced by a peaceful hush broken only by the ticking of an antique clock. The shop felt alive in a quiet, breathing way, as though it had been waiting for her. Mr. Thomson looked up from behind the counter and offered a kind nod. "Take your time," he said softly. "The rain usually passes quicker when one is surrounded by stories." Emily smiled, grateful, and began to wander between the shelves. Her fingers brushed against spines of every color and age, classic literature, forgotten poetry, handwritten journals, and first editions carefully wrapped in protective covers. The longer she stayed, the more she felt drawn inward, as though the outside world no longer existed. That was when she noticed it. In a shadowed corner, partially hidden behind larger volumes, sat a small, dusty book. Its cover was plain, bound in faded brown leather, with no title etched upon it. Something about it called to her. Curious, Emily pulled it free and gently blew off the dust. A cloud shimmered briefly in the lamplight before settling again. Opening the book, she discovered not a novel, but a carefully preserved collection of handwritten letters, each one dated between 1914 and 1918. Her breath caught. The ink had faded with time, but the words were still legible, elegant, heartfelt, alive with emotion. She read the first letter, then another, and another, until the world around her disappeared entirely. The letters spoke of love, deep, aching, unwavering. They told of longing, hope, fear, and devotion written in a time when words were the only bridge between separated hearts. Unbeknownst to Emily, she was holding the very soul of the bookstore. Those letters were written by Arthur Thomson and Ileana Moretti, Mr. Thomson's grandparents, who had once owned the shop together. Their love story was not merely history, it was the foundation upon which the bookstore stood. Arthur had been a dreamer. A struggling writer with ink-stained fingers and eyes full of ideas, he believed words could change the world. Ileana, in contrast, was raised in comfort and privilege, the daughter of a wealthy businessman who envisioned a future for her far removed from dusty bookshelves and uncertain dreams. Yet fate had other plans. They met in this very bookstore when it was newly opened, Arthur working tirelessly to build a place where stories could live, and Ileana visiting out of curiosity. Conversations turned into laughter, laughter into affection, and affection into love so powerful it defied class, expectation, and fear. But happiness, as history often reminds us, can be fragile. When World War I erupted, it tore through Europe like a storm. Arthur, driven by duty and belief, was drafted into the army. On the morning he left, Ileana clutched his coat tightly, her tears soaking into the fabric as she begged him to return. "I will," Arthur promised, pressing his forehead against hers. "No matter how long it takes." Their letters became lifelines. Arthur wrote from muddy trenches, describing the horrors of war and the hope that sustained him, her. Ileana wrote from London, recounting the daily life of the bookstore, her endless waiting, and her unwavering faith in his return. But war is merciless. Letters arrived less frequently. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. And then, one day, they stopped altogether. Ileana waited. She waited through seasons, through rumors, through silence. She waited even when hope became painful. But eventually, reality settled heavily upon her heart. Arthur was never coming back. Broken yet resilient, Ileana poured her grief into the bookstore. She kept it alive, preserving Arthur's dream, surrounding herself with his words, his presence lingering in every corner. She never remarried. She never forgot. As Emily read through the letters, tears welled in her eyes. She felt connected not only to Arthur and Ileana, but to the ache of love lost, a pain she knew all too well. Unable to contain her curiosity, Emily approached Mr. Thomson and asked about the letters. At first, he hesitated. His voice faltered as he spoke of his grandparents, of stories passed down in hushed tones, of love preserved through ink and paper. But as he spoke, something softened within him. Encouraged, Emily offered to help uncover the truth of Arthur's fate. Together, they searched through archives, old newspapers, and forgotten records. Days passed, and slowly, pieces of the puzzle came together. The breakthrough came when Emily discovered a faded photograph, Arthur and Ileana standing together on the day he left for war. In the background stood a statue in a park nearby. Emily recognized it instantly. With renewed determination, she went in search of the statue. After hours of walking, she found it tucked away in a quiet corner of the park. Beneath it was a small plaque. In loving memory of Arthur Thomson, who gave his life for his country during the Great War. The truth was finally clear. Arthur had died in battle. Emily returned to the bookstore, her heart heavy, and shared her discovery with Mr. Thomson. Together, they sat in silence, honoring the love that had endured beyond time. In the years that followed, the story of Arthur and Ileana became a legend whispered among customers. And in the quiet corners of the bookstore, among old books and forgotten letters, love continued to live, proof that even in the darkest times, love never truly fades. Don't forget to subscribe our channel.